Mac Power Users, episode 631. Back to the Mac with Myke Hurley. Hello, everyone. This is David Sparks. I am joined today by my co-host, Mr. Stephen Hackett. How are you today, Stephen?
I'm good, David. Who's this Myke guy?
I wanted to introduce you. We've got a great guest today. Welcome to the show, Myke Hurley.
Hello.
Hey.
I'm happy to be back.
We used to have you on regularly, and then when the new co-host came in, he's like, man, that guy, don't invite that guy back.
Got enough of that guy.
I heard he went to the iPad. That's what they said.
Can't trust him. I've got really one question that we need to clear up right at the top. Myke, how did you end up with such good taste in co-founders?
Poor mistakes.
Wow. That's harsh.
Man, you guys are mean. But but you've created a very loving Relay Network. For folks who don't know, Myke Hurley is the co-founder of the Relay Network, the host of many shows on the Relay Network. So what all we got, Myke? We got Cortex, we got Upgrade, we got Pen Addict, Connected. He's
Analog. The list goes on and on and on.
He's what we refer to in the business as a podcaster, and a few other things.
Yeah.
Also a professional keyboard enthusiast. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Is it professional yet? I feel like it kind of is. But either way.
I make like $150 a month on Twitch. I don't know if that makes me professional.
That's absolutely professional.
Professional, yes. Good businessman.
No,
TBD.
I'm definitely in the hole on that.
Build a $500 keyboard and get back $100. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
If I was trying to set up a business on that, I would be in quite a lot of trouble at the moment.
Yeah, but either way, Myke has been an Apple enthusiast for a long time, and you were podcasting before Relay and all this stuff as well. Mm-hmm. And then for a few years, you went kind of iPad focused.
Yeah.
And honestly, I wanted to have you on the show to talk about it because I'm interested in what people are doing with iPads these days. But then you came back. You came back to the Mac. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about that today too. But I'm really looking forward to having you on, Myke. It's been way too long, and thanks for coming in today.
Today on More Power Users, the longer ad-free version of the show, we're going to talk about what I've dubbed my overly complex Pinewood Derby setup. So my kids race the Pinewood Derby, and I get sucked in as the guy who knows how computers work. And it involves serial cables and some of the jankiest software you've ever seen. So we'll talk about that in the bonus episode for members.
Yeah, I mean, there's one line in the outline that says serial cable, and I'm like, okay, now I've got to hear this because I didn't even know that was a thing still.
Very alive. I was going to say alive and well. The well part's probably not true, but still alive.
I remember when, we actually had to use serial cables under fire, and it was hell. You'd have one little pin get bent, and then some guy would come and just jam it in as hard as possible, and then you were in all sorts of trouble. But anyway, but of course, Stephen would embrace it. So I think that's going to be fun to talk about today. So we're going to get to that. But first, let's catch up with Myke. Since you were last on the show, Myke, Apple's made a couple changes in some of the stuff they make, and we've got the Apple Silicon Revolution now in full swing. What is your gear these days?
Ooh, that's a big question. So we start with Macs.
All right.
So I use two Macs on a daily basis. So my main computer, like just straight up most important computer in my life, I'll include iPads in that discussion, is my 14-inch MacBook Pro. I absolutely adore that laptop. By and large, I use it in clamshell mode with a LG monitor, but it's, I take it home with me if I need to do a bit of work at home, and it's more than what my iPad can handle, which these days my choices suggest mostly it is more than I want to do on my iPad. We'll get to that in a minute, I'm sure. That's my main machine. I'm speaking to you.
So how did you spec it out? I mean, people want to know.
Oh, man. I have the Pro Max chip for no real reason. It was just what I decided to go with. This is one of those things where the three of us can understand this. you're doing these things and you want to get the products and you want to be able to talk about them, right? So it kind of means that if you want to get it for launch day or whatever, so you can talk about it on your show, you kind of have to just order really fast. And for me, that means that I either A, I'm not 100% sure what I'm ordering, or B, make mistakes. I've ordered the wrong iPhone color multiple times for this reason. But yeah, I went with got 2 terabytes of SSD storage because that's kind of like, for me, that is my baseline. And it has been for a while, because that just means I can get, like, if I wanted to, everything that's in my Dropbox stored locally and more than. And I got, I'm taking a look at my Apple receipt here. I also got, so I got the 10-core M1 Max chip. And I said Pro Max, that made me seem like a fake Mac boy. M1 Max chip, 10-core CPU, 24-core GPU. And I went with 64 gigabytes of unified memory.
I think a shocking number of our listeners would totally understand the desire to get a maxed out laptop, because you get it and you just want to use it and not think about it and replace it for a long time. And even, some of us who are sometimes guilty of not holding on to them as long as we probably should, we still want the maxed out ones too. There was a friend that came over my house the other day, and I could literally hear him drive up because he's got like a fancy car with a big engine in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I walked him out later and he's like, "So how's your hybrid? My car, you like have to get out and push sometimes." And as he was driving, I was thinking about that. I'm like, everybody has their thing, right? And there's nothing wrong with making your thing being a fancy car or a fancy computer.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. We don't have to apologize for it. It's
I mean,
awesome.
for me as well, like this isn't a reason, but it's just like a benefit.
Yeah.
Max retain value pretty well. So, when I do buy new machines now, I sell the old ones. And they retain value pretty well. And ultimately, I end up, in my mind, just paying for the year or 2 years of usage and then get some money back and go back in the pool again.
Yeah, I'm the exact opposite of Steven that way. I don't want to keep anything. I find a use for it. I give it away. I sell it. I do something and get it out the door.
I'll sell modern stuff, like my iMac Pro I sold, but it's just in 15 years, I'll find a cheap one on Craigslist,
So the real question is Steven going to sell his Mac Pro in 6 months?
Well, the value of the Mac Pro is not what it once was. So I don't know what I'm going to do. One thing I thought of, Mike, when you're talking about your storage, a lot in the conversation about the M1 is, it has some limitations the M1 Pro and M1 Max don't have. So the M1 maximum is 16 gigabytes of memory. If you want 32 or 64, you got to go to the M1 Pro or M1 Max line. But another one of the sort of the limitations of the M1 chip is 2 terabyte SSD. It's as big as you can go internally. And it sounds like that's enough for you. But if someone is weighing, maybe in the future when there's more M1 Pro machines, if you're weighing, don't need the M1 or the M1 Pro, be sure to look at all of those different factors, because it may be that the storage or the memory constraints of the basic chip, that may be what holds you back.
Yeah, and talking about those kinds of constraints, the computer I'm talking to you now on is M1 iMac. I have a yellow M1 iMac. It's been my recording machine for the best part of the last year, and I have 2 terabytes of storage on here too. 1 terabyte. I have just 1 terabyte on this one with 16 gigabytes of unified memory. And it doesn't really come to bite me on this machine so much, but I was using the original M1 MacBook Pro for a while, and that 16 gigabytes of memory on that machine, because I was doing a lot on it, that would really get upset sometimes. Like I would get those pop-ups, and it was like, hey, you do not have enough memory anymore and you need to close some applications. So that was one of the reasons why I went so high with the RAM on the MacBook Pro that replaced it, because I just didn't want to keep running into that anymore. And I haven't had this issue once at all on the 14-inch MacBook Pro.
Yeah, I have this theory that these Apple Silicon Macs are going to be very stable and last a long time. And, Apple's been making iPads that last forever for a decade, and these are almost like souped up version of iPad chips. In some cases, they're the same chips, So I can't help but feel like these things are going to last a while. So I do think getting more storage or memory when you buy it might serve you well, because I suspect your computer's not going to feel slow for a long time.
I mean, I guess while we're recording this, we're on the eve of an Apple event, and I do wonder if there's going to be anything with the M2, which is with that in mind. Like the M1 is just like, we'll get this out the door, and then maybe the M2 brings some quality of life improvements that would allow for more storage, more RAM. That's what I would like to see from that base level. I think that needs to increase over time.
All right. So you've got, but what color did you get? I don't remember. What color did you end up getting for your iMac?
It's yellow.
Nice.
I was lucky enough to get sent a review unit of this machine, and the one that they sent me was yellow. And so then I kind of fell in love with the yellow. I don't think yellow is the one I would have chose. I probably would have bought the orange one.
The orange is
but
good.
I've really come to love the yellow. And then, me and Stephen, we do our campaign, which Mac Power Users listeners will know. We do our podcastathon every year. And we challenge each other to do things. And now my desk is completely covered in stickers of Stephen's face, which, because of his beautiful blonde hair, are almost yellow kind of in their hue. So it really does fit in now, honestly, with the whole milieu I'm building over here.
Can we put a picture of that in the show notes? Because I think it's truly disturbing, that picture.
It's something.
I don't know.
That's for sure.
I don't know, man. I really like Stephen Hackett, but that's too much Stephen Hackett.
At this point, I barely notice it. It's just like, this is just what my desk looks like.
Well, it almost becomes a texture when you get that many stickers, right?
There's a lot. It's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds.
Okay. So switching over to the iPad, what are you using these days?
iPad mini. That's all.
What? Just the iPad mini? I thought you had a Pro too.
I will give an asterisk. Right. So I have an iPad Pro.
Yeah.
I have a 12-inch iPad Pro. It is the 2020 version.
Yeah.
So the one that they added LiDAR for. I think that was the 2020 one.
Yeah, the big upgrade year. I have air quotes right here. Yeah.
Again, this is one of those things where new iPad Pro dropped, and I was like, all right, quick, let me buy it. And then I'm the sucker because nothing changed. But,
we got LiDAR.
I got that. Yeah, so I got LiDAR.
Well, put an asterisk on that. I have a use for that for you in a minute. What are you doing with it currently?
That iPad Pro, it has two uses now. Its main place now is it is mounted to a rowing machine that I have in my studio.
Okay. All right. Well,
so that's pretty good for Fitness Plus. And then also, like, part of my work now is like product design. I run a company called Cortex Brand who make notebooks and other things coming. And I like to use the Apple Pencil on the larger screen to draw out and sketch some stuff. That's it. Other than that iPad Pro doesn't do anything for me anymore. My main iPad usage is all on the iPad Mini.
Yeah, and honestly, I could see you using that for like another 6 years because it's going to be fine,
That also may be the next time they update it. So
I don't think I'm going to have a choice in the matter. Which, I love that iPad Mini.
It's so good. The form factor of the Mini has always been interesting because it's always been the small one. But for a long time now, it's just kind of sat kind of at the bottom of the line in terms of importance, but not in terms of price, right? It's been more expensive than the base one. But with this new design, like the iPad Air design scaled down so nicely. I mean, I'm right with you. Like, I haven't touched my iPad Pro. I have one from 2018, and it's just been on a shelf because the Mini does everything I want it to do in this like really great size and lightweight form factor.
It's really crazy because, I mean, the iPad Mini has been around a while, but it's the new design and like the new, the Apple Pencil integration. Like, it's like suddenly everybody's like, what? Everybody's really into the iPad Mini now. And, I'm one as well. I have one. We took our vacation last month. I brought that and a $30 keyboard off Amazon that folds and fits in my pocket. And that was awesome.
Yeah. Like I said this at the time. And it's kind of going with some of the stuff that you said, Dave. Like, I really liked what you put in for Jason's scorecard, the 6-color scorecard of like, I'm kind of just now accepting what the iPad is for and doing what the iPad wants me to do. And I do feel like the iPad Mini is like the best content consumption iPad that Apple's ever made. And I'm just really leaning into this is what the iPad is for me. It is when I'm at home it is pretty much the only thing I use. I don't really use my iPhone very much at home, at least not as much as I use my iPad mini. And it's great because also it being more constrained, it having a keyboard which is harder to use because it takes up most of the screen if you use it in landscape, it stops me from working on it too much. So I actually quite like I then have to go into the hallway, open my backpack, get my laptop out. Like there's hurdles there. And so it's helping me keep some of that separation, which I really enjoy.
I mean, when you get in like one of these bad relationships and you decide that you can change the other person, or you have a relationship with somebody and they think they can change you. And of course it has a happy ending. That described my relationship with the iPad up until very recently. I was trying to change it and it didn't want to be changed, but
nope.
Well, we can talk about that later. I also have a question for you because I know with your iMac, you've got this amazing, pretty amazing Apple screen. It's not like the quality of screens that they're putting in the MacBook Pro, but it's a good screen in that new smaller iMac. And then you've got something next to it. What are you putting next to your screen? You've got another like external monitor, but what is it?
I'm just using some Dell monitor. Like I don't even know what it is. Like I can find it for you for the show notes, but I don't recommend this monitor to anybody. So when I set up my studio, it was a weird time. I signed the lease on my studio space in February 2020.
That was great timing.
It was great. And so things kind of were messed up for a while as to moving all of my gear here and trying to understand what I was going to be doing. And I'd had an iPad, a Mac Mini for a number of years at that point that I had at home and didn't really know what I wanted to set up like a home server with it, but it ended up not really going anywhere. So I brought that Mac Mini here to the studio to be kind of like the interim computer that I would use for hopefully starting to record. And while I was trying to work out where I was going to have all of my machines, because I didn't really know when I was actually going to be fully moving into this space. Now, Mac Mini needs a monitor, right? So I just went on Amazon, found one that had decent reviews, and just bought this Dell monitor.
Yeah.
And used it for a while, and it's fine, right? Like, the resolution's fine enough. It's got a matte screen on it, which is kind of interesting. It was doing the job. And then when the iMac came into my life, I was like, great, goodbye, Mac Mini. I don't need you anymore. And I got rid of, I had the monitor on a VESA arm, which was mounted to the desk, and I just took it all down, got rid of it, put it back in its box and kind of put it in storage here in the studio. After using the iMac for a little while, the 24-inch screen was fine, but I had a lot more windows overlapping than I did before, especially coming from the 27-inch iMac Pro that I had previously. And so I was like, what could I do here? Because one of the things that I didn't like is, I have all of my audio hijack set up and everything. And I like to just be able to see the whole window just to make sure that everything looks like it's recording. I can glance at it and see the counters going up. But on the iMac, if I wanted to have that open along with, say, Safari for my show notes, something's going to overlap something. And so I ended up setting up this, like getting the Dell monitor back out of storage and setting it up next to the iMac. So now I have just one screen and it's got audio hijack on it, it's got Zoom, and it's got Skype, and it just lives there forever. And so all of the recording stuff is always visible to me, and it's just off on its own. And then I can have just Safari open, and if we are doing a show live, I'll have Discord open on the main screen of the iMac. It's really cool. I like it a lot.
So the way when you were talking about your big iPad earlier, what I do is I have the 2018, I have the very first square-edged iPad, whatever that was. I'm talking about the big one. Yep. And I actually have it on a stand under my monitor, and I run it either as sidecar or just as a separate monitor. And I can put all the tools on there, and it's a very nice looking screen. Obviously, it's a $1,000 monitor, right? But recently I had a Dell as well that my daughter was using, but then she went back to school, so she didn't need it anymore. So I connected it to my computer, and I get that it's nice to have extra pixels. We just interviewed Annie Murphy-Paul on Focus, who talked about how important it is that you have extra pixels, but I just could not stand how ugly it looked next to my screen. It was purely aesthetics. I pulled it down after a week. I couldn't take it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I understand that. I feel like I can live with it. I think in your situation with the Pro Display,
Yeah.
I think I would maybe struggle a little bit more, Like
Yeah.
the display on the iMac is really nice, right? Like, no complaints here. It's a beautiful display. But the one that I've got on the side is fine. But also as well, I'm not using this Dell display for active stuff. I'm not like reading things on it. I'm not like checking my calendar on it. Like it really is for me just like a very static screen. But it's just something I can glance at and just make sure it's working the way that I want and leave it there. It's more about getting things off my immediate desktop than being a secondary place for me to go and look at and do work and stuff. So I just forget it's there.
But the Pro Display is like having a really fancy car and like bolting a big plastic hot dog on top of it. And nobody wants a plastic hot dog.
Look, here's the thing, right? I don't want to pull a Steven and say something that I'm later going to regret.
Hey,
because I'd end up doing the thing. If Apple released their own displays, I'm not going to replace the Dell display with one of those just for the sake of replacing it.
Please, Madam Transcriber, mark the record right there.
Unless those displays are like $200 a piece, which they won't be, right? They're going to be expensive.
I mean, I would never buy a Pro Display XDR and not tell anybody about it for 3 months. Doesn't sound like me.
I just want to say my restraint, like, because I deal with just the worst situation with I have an LG monitor. It's from their Ergo line. It's the ultrafine Ergo. And one of the reasons I really like this monitor, this is that I use in my MacBook Pro, is it's like 30 inches. It looks really nice. The screen's good. And it's got a really great arm that clamps to the desk, and it's got lots of adjustability in all angles. I really love the monitor for its adjustability. And I have it plugged into a CalDigit dock, which is where I have all of my peripherals plugged in and stuff like that. And it's what with one cable, I can plug into my MacBook Pro, right? Living the dream. Okay. Every day, I plug my laptop in. I have to open the laptop. I have to unplug the USB-C cable from the back of the monitor and plug it back in again for the monitor to come on. I do this every day. This is how I start my day when I get to the studio. If I don't do that, it won't work. And if I leave the machine for, like, say I've come and record for like 3 or 4 hours, I have to go back and I have to do it again. So I feel like, and then all my friends with their big Pro Display XDRs are like, oh, come on, just get one. And I have restrained. It's like I'm dealing with this terrible monitor setup every single day, and I have not gone down the Pro Display XDR route because that monitor is too expensive. That's
it is.
So I think I deserve congratulations.
This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by SaneBox. For great email filtering, no matter which email application you use, go to sanebox.com/MPU and stop drowning in email today. I love it when these SaneBox ad reads come up because I love using the product so much. SaneBox learns what email is important to you and filters out what isn't, and it saves you hours. I run it on my Mac all the time. The way it works is SaneBox looks at the name of the person sending you email and the subject line and keeps track of how often you reply to that person, and then it sorts email for you. I mean, there's a lot more to it than that, but it's like a smart secretary sorting your email for you before you have to do it yourself. And that way your inbox just has the most important email for you, and the other sane boxes hold the less important email. It really allows you to prioritize email in a way that's, sane. It works with all kinds of email programs and services. You don't have to have a special app. It's so great at email filtering, but it also has other features like you can delay email. If you put something into a snooze box, like say 3 days, then you don't see it for 3 days, and then it comes back to you. They've got the same black hole where you can unsubscribe with one click. You put an email in there, and in the future, anybody that sends you an email from that address, you just don't see anymore. It's a very satisfying experience to put something into the same black hole. And then my favorite feature is Sane Reminders. You can carbon copy or blind copy to a certain increment of time at sanebox.com, like 1 week at sanebox.com. And if the person doesn't respond to that email within a week, you get a reminder. It's just a really good way to keep on track of things. It's more than filtering, though. You can also have it save your attachments to Dropbox or other cloud services. And prices start as low as $4 a month. When I first found SaneBox, I fell in love with it. I have it on all my email accounts, and you can get a 14-day free trial. Just go to sanebox.com/MPU. You get a $25 credit on any plan. You get that 14-day free trial. We have a huge percentage of MPU listeners that try this and end up signing up. They write me and say, we don't understand why you guys use it so much. Well, MPU listeners get it. It's just a really great way to help take control of your mail. And because it works on the cloud, it can work with any mail application, and it's really great. So go check it out. That's sanebox.com/MPU. You can receive that $25 credit on any plan and let them know you heard about it here on the Mac Power Users. Thanks again to SaneBox for all of your support of the Mac Power Users.
So one of the big pain points when talking about the continuum from the iPad to the Mac is that iPad OS just has some inherent software limitations that aren't there on the Mac. And Myke, I'm curious if you had a workflow or something that was kind of leading you back to the Mac and the new hardware was just a fun opportunity to jump back in. But what was that interplay for you?
This is an interesting question because I don't really feel like I've reached like a breaking point, right? Like I don't think that I was just like, oh, I cannot stand iPadOS anymore. And nor did I really feel like I was on any kind of like gradual decline, like a frustration point. Because I could get all my stuff done fine that I needed. Sometimes it took a little bit more work, a few extra taps here and there. But I liked, and still to this day, really like the multitasking kind of method of iPadOS. I find it very natural, very fluid. It makes sense, like, the way you touch things and move things around with your hands. Like, I like all of that. And I have said before, and I maintain, I really do not like the general look of multitasking on the Mac. Like, I don't like windows that are just all over the place. And neither have I ever really been happy with any of the like window snapping tools. There's just something about it that what I want is some kind of thing that goes in the middle of what iPad and what Mac does, but I don't know what that is exactly. All I know is I kind of find myself not really mega happy with either of them, because with the iPad, the limit of only having two and one little tiny window on the side can sometimes be frustrating. I genuinely think for me, it wasn't a software thing that moved me back to the Mac. I think it was just, it was a hardware thing, and also the ergonomics of it all, so which I guess ties in with hardware, really. Just as the hardware on the Mac was becoming more exciting, those ergonomic challenges that I mentioned, like they just became much easier to solve for me, and just to be much more comfortable with the flexibility that the Mac provides.
Yeah, something you said that really kind of stood out for me is that your location matters in terms of your platform preference. Like you work at a desk recording podcasts and editing shows, and that is a location where a Mac is ergonomically, but also just kind of built for it, whereas an iPad isn't made for that. An iPad's made to sit on the couch and fiddle with, I feel like.
I do wish that Apple would take that last step, though, because they are so close now to making that a possibility. And it's a thing that, we've been talking about for years now, which is just make it a better experience if I want to plug a monitor in. Like, what would that look like? Because the pointer on iPadOS is so much cooler, and I like it way more than the pointer on the Mac. Like, I think it looks better. I think it operates better. And obviously keyboards work absolutely fine, and there's tons of great keyboard shortcuts now, made even better with 15. Like, I would love to see them do something with the displays, and I just hope that is on the horizon still. However, this is, again, going back to what you were saying earlier, Dave, and what I mentioned earlier. The problem with being a fan of iPadOS is you are always saying, when it comes to the operating system, maybe they're going to do X soon. And I feel like it's just too many years of saying that when I can just use the Mac, which is a platform that I enjoy more than enough. It's not like, look, we might talk about Windows later. I can get by on Windows. I don't enjoy it. Like, I find Windows to be very frustrating in places. And I think for some of the creative work that we all do can actually be too complicated. It's not like I'm choosing between a platform that I enjoy and a platform that I don't enjoy, So moving from iOS to macOS as primary, again, it wasn't that much of a problem for me at all.
I do think you're one of the few people who seem to prefer multitasking on the iPad over the Mac, though.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. I think it's maybe the combination of just the way the system works and how big the screens are. Like, I don't like split screen multitasking on a Mac, like on an iMac, for example, because it just feels like wasted space to me. Like, you're taking like a 21 or 24 inch monitor or something and splitting it exactly down the middle. Like, that just doesn't feel right, where like on an iPad, that feels really right, and the apps as well are made for it, like apps are made to look good on those screens in all of the different size classes that Apple makes them. Like, I just find that to be a nice experience. And I do like, moving windows around my hands and stuff like that all just fits really well. Where, when I'm on the Mac, I think part of the problem is myself, honestly. I am a messy Mac user with my windows. They're all over the place, all overlapping.
Now, Myke, I have listened to you talk about this on Cortex. I feel like I have a challenge for you. I want you to do something for me. Okay. Because you talked about Windows, and there's a lot not to like about Windows, but actually Windows window management is probably better than the Mac's window management, the way things kind of snap and move around. But I would like you to do me a favor and just for 30 days, there's an app called Moom. So I'm not going to push you into Keyboard Maestro. I know you don't want to go like down there, but there's an app called Moom, and they've got a feature in there. If I have to, I'll send you some screenshots or a little video, but you can easily drag windows on a pre-designated grid. So you can kind of set them up the way you want. And then you can record a keyboard shortcut to save that. So like if you're going to be doing podcasting, you could say, I want this window here, that window there, blah, blah, blah. And then when I sit down and hit Control Option Command 0 on my keyboard, just arrange those windows for that. I think you would like it. I think it would, because you're right. Split screen, what Apple has done isn't any good. It's two windows for that big massive screen don't make any sense. But maybe 4 or 6 could make sense for you, and especially with that second monitor. I think there's room for you here without going like full automation crazy on this stuff.
Interesting. All right, I'm willing to try it. I mean, so one of the things for me is I just leave all my apps open all the time. They're just all open and all overlapping, and then I just kind of click in the dock for which one I need at any given moment.
Well, does that work for you?
Sure, it's just messy.
Yeah, see,
but
that's the impression I get is you like the clean kind of environment of the iPad, the way it's just kind of set up for you. And my point would be with Moom, you could do that on the Mac. You could make it so it does that for you, and then it's not messy.
All right, I'm going to download it and I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it, Dave, for you.
Like, it even has a little thing where you can put a little gutter between the windows so they're not like right next to each other. There's a little space between them. And I do that.
I would actually like to know from the two of you, are you Windows touching or Windows not touching?
Oh, Windows not touching. I mean, there has to be 10 pixels there.
Yeah, there needs to be some space, but I don't really use many of these tools. I mean, my setup is just overlapping windows all the time. Chaos. And then I can just use the trackpad to quickly kind of zoom around inside Mission Control.
Well, the other thing I did in Moom that is very clever, I would think, is you guys are gamers. So, JKL, how you move around with that stuff. I set up in Moom the favorite places I like to put windows, like top left corner, left side, right side, and I map them to keyboard shortcuts in Moom with Control Option and JKL or I or UIO or NMW. Everything that's right around that section, my fingers are there anyway. So I can just hold down Control and Command and press anything. Like if I hold down Control Command and press J, it takes the existing window and puts on the left side of the screen. If I hold down Control Command press L, it puts on the right side of the screen. And then I've done other variations of that. So not only do I have kind of pre-programmed setups if I'm going to podcast or screencast or write or whatever, I've also got the ability on the fly to just arrange things nicely. And with Moom, it puts the little gutter between them. And I'm like you. I do not like overlapping, messy desktops. I need them to be clean.
Okay.
Well, try it. I don't know. You didn't answer your question. Do you have space between the windows, or do you put them right on top of each other?
Oh, they're mostly, well, they either go on top of each other or they touch. They like just touch next to each other.
Yeah. Well, try Moom. I'm
gonna
gonna
try
make
Moom.
a little video. I'm gonna make a little video. Maybe I'll just put it
brilliant.
up for everybody so you can all see it. And but it's really clever, and you can also do this stuff in tools like Shortcuts, which doesn't do it as well as Moom does, and you can do it in stuff like Keyboard Maestro, which is more tedious than Moom. So there's other ways to do it, but I think that that might make the experience more iPad-like, and it sounds to me like that's what you're looking for.
I think it might be. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to take the challenge.
This episode of Mac Power Users is made possible by Text Expander. You can get 20% off of Text Expander with the link in the show notes. Text Expander is critical to keeping things consistent and accurate. It's a fast-paced world out there, and things are constantly changing. Errors in messaging often have significant consequences. Text Expander lets you make new approved messaging available to every team member instantly with just a few keystrokes, ensuring that your team remains consistent, current, and accurate. Get your message right every time. Expand content that corrects your spelling and keeps your language consistent with just a few keystrokes. Your team members will consistently know the right message for the right person at the right time without relying on memory or copy and paste. Show listeners get 20% off their first year. Just visit textexpander.com/podcast to learn more. I can't imagine my working life without Text Expander. I rely on it hundreds of times a week, and without it, my computer feels broken. I think you're going to feel the same way. So visit textexpander.com/podcast to learn more. And again, you'll get 20% off your first year.
Okay, Myke, another thing that you're doing, and I don't know if this overlaps with your return to the Mac, but it seems like it does, is you have gone all in on mechanical keyboards.
Yeah.
Like, not have you just like got a mechanical keyboard. You're like, you have a soldering iron. You're like doing stuff, man. How did that happen?
So, kind of around the beginning of the pandemic, I was starting to get some videos served to me on YouTube of this kind of stuff. I don't know how YouTube knew that it was time for me.
Yeah.
To start mechanical keyboards, but YouTube decided. And I was watching a bunch of videos from like a couple of Twitch streamers. There's one called Teja Types, one called Alex Otos. I can give you links for their channels. And they're kind of like two of the biggest streamers in the space. And I was just kind of like, we all had a bunch of time on our hands, right? And so I started watching a bunch of Twitch streams, or just having them on in the background. The really nice thing about kind of the keyboard Twitch stream stuff is they're very relaxed, and you can kind of just put them on and have them as background sound. They play music and they talk and answer questions, and you can look over every now and then and kind of see what they're doing. And I found it like a really relaxing thing. The more and more videos that I watched, the more drawn I was getting to the interesting designs that the keyboards had. And that was really what pulled me in first. Like there are lots of different things about this kind of stuff. Some people like the way the keyboards feel to type on. Some people like the way they sound. And I am more drawn towards the visuals of it. Like I think we spoke about this on previous episodes, but I've had a long love affair with pens, and it's a similar thing for me. Like they are these tools that we use, and I like to collect interesting looking ones, and I get drawn to the aesthetics of it and how they feel to use. So then as the pandemic kind of continued, my consumption of this kind of content increased to the point where I then started buying some products and pre-ordering some products of my own. And then it kind of just went on from there to the point where I ended up starting streaming on my own as well, because it kind of felt like this was a space that I wanted to be in and have fun with and enjoy. And there's a small group of people who are mostly in the Relay FM members Discord, and we have a channel there and we're talking all the time. And then kind of once a week, they'll come and hang out with me while I stream on Twitch as well, while I'm kind of just sharing my hobby with others Like that's what one of the things that I really like about it is this is just like a hobby of mine now, and I get to share it and in a way that doesn't really feel like work at all. Like I stand by never wanting to have a keyboard podcast for this reason. Like I just want to enjoy this thing for what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it may have assisted with the move to the Mac. I mean, ultimately, these keyboards, they're very simple things, like they work with iPads perfectly well, You can connect, they're all, you can connect any of them to USB-C and it's simple. But then over time, like I was really drawn to learning a little bit about electronics, like that was like really fascinating to me. I'm sure this is something that Stephen can agree with, right? Like the idea of being able to open something up and tinker with it, and it's now opened me up to other things. Like me and Stephen have been very slowly over the last year, like completely rebuilding an entire iPod together on stream, and like these are like skills that I now feel are in my kind of tool set, like opening up stuff, kind of having a better idea of taking things apart, putting them back together, and then soldering is just, it's not a complicated thing, but I think it's a daunting thing. It was very daunting to me, especially because this thing is so hot, like it's an incredibly hot iron and you got to do it all right. But yeah, I adore it. It's like, I'm so happy that I found this little hobby. And I mean, it is a rabbit hole. These things can be a money pit, but as long as you just handle it properly, it's a nice little thing to enjoy.
Yeah. And you've made some really nice keyboards. It's funny. I was just thinking about it. You're like, you like to fetishize input mechanisms. You got the pins, you got the keyboards. I think next is mice. You're going to build your own mouse, right? That's next.
I would do that. I would, if that was such a thing, I would do it. Like I am a tools person, not like not like a power tools person or whatever, but I enjoy things that people use for creativity, and I like to, all of that stuff, I like to have them in a very specific way. This comes down to my computers too, right?
Yeah.
I want them in a certain way. Like I'm sure so many Mac Power users can can sympathize with this and empathize with this. So like I just want things set up a certain way, and I find it particularly exciting when I can go to every element of it, right? Like I can build the keyboard that goes on the desk that I chose and customize in a certain way, and goes with everything else that I have on my desk, which all goes together to help me make my work.
Yeah. Well, I for one am a fan because I've been enjoying it vicariously through you. I'm not like as far down that rabbit hole as you are, but I actually am interested in seeing what you can do. Like you made like these little keyboards. Like I think it was one of the reasons why you were resistant to Stream Deck. You were making like little
macro
tiny
pads.
keyboard.
Macro pads, they're called. Yeah, I have a few of these.
What is that?
Well, a lot of them are just numpads, right?
Yeah.
So they start off that way. But I have a couple of these, they're called macro pads. It's like a 6-key kind of thing, like a Stream Deck, right?
Yeah.
But they just have regular keycaps on them. And I have a few of these that like can either be good hobby projects, like good starting projects for soldering, which is why I got some. And then there's like a couple that I have just because I think they're aesthetically attractive. And I use these when I'm streaming. So I use them how Stream Decks were originally intended, right? Like to change between camera scenes and to use different effects and stuff. And so when I'm streaming, I use my macro pads. They're all just like coded to do certain functions, or they're set to certain function keys, which triggers something in my streaming software.
So they're sending just the ANSI code for the, I'm probably getting the language wrong here, but they're sending the code for like the number 1 on the number pad. Is that what they're doing? What are they sending to the computer when you press them?
Well, I have them set up as like F18 through 29 or something, which you can customize what these keys do.
Wait a second. So this could be in addition to a number pad. So because you don't normally have 18 through 29.
No, but you can, computers will understand that if you can code that to the keyboard. And there's like reprogramming software that I use. So, like I have this 6-key one that's on my desk, which is the one that I mostly use for setting up stream stuff. And I think it starts at F18.
Yeah.
And so you can just tell with the remapping software, you can just tell the macro pad, this is what this key will do. And then you can go to the streaming software and, like with any keyboard shortcut remapping, it's like, what key do you want to activate this? And I just hit that and it's like, oh, we recognize that as F18. That will be the one for this scene. So but you can also, with a lot of these keyboards, they have like these really cool remapping tools, and you can set them to basically do anything. It's really cool, and then you can just set it up as such and customize the keyboard shortcuts to allow you to do stuff in the software.
Oh man, this is the point where you suck me in, Myke. This is the point.
Hey, I'm not doing nothing.
Macro pad.
I would say
Google macro pad. Okay.
I wouldn't for you. The Stream Deck is way better for what you want it for, because this is just like it is a, the interface is hidden from you. I have to just remember, or through muscle memory, remember what these keys do. And they can only do 6 things, right? With the Stream Decks, you can, as you spoke about a couple of weeks ago, you can set those up as little folders and all that kind of stuff.
I know.
I'm using like a real old school Stream Deck.
But it's still kind of fun. The idea that I could get more, I could get F20. I don't have F20 right now. I want F20.
Imagine how many functions you could have.
Well, if I were to do it, I would use it for screen setups. Like I have those already plugged into my Stream Deck, but it would be cool to have like buttons that are always there that like, okay, going into podcast mode, press button, and then everything happens, that kind of thing. That would be cool.
Especially if you had stuff that you always need and isn't going to change, like those screen setups that you have. Having just fixed keys for those just seems fun.
Oh man. All right. Well, I'm going to save this search. That's all I'm going to say.
So, Myke, you're doing these streams where you're building a keyboard or repairing one or updating something. Talk to us a little bit about how that's set up and kind of what drew you to Twitch, because I think a lot of people know it mostly for things like video game streaming. How did you land on that being the place to explore this with other people?
Yeah, I mean, Twitch was the easy choice for me because that's where all the keyboard stuff was happening. So all of the streams that I was watching, they were happening on Twitch. So the more I was watching, the more I understood the kind of particulars about the platform. Like all of these platforms, they have their own language, they have their own mechanisms, like how they work and how people think about them. So I was internalizing that just through watching the streams. So then when I decided that I wanted to do it myself, it made sense. And plus, I've had a bit of experience with Twitch in the past. I've done some game streaming. We've done the podcast-a-thon streams. We do them on Twitch. And so for me, it was like, well, if I want to do some streaming on my own, I'll just go to Twitch. And I like to have an understanding of different platforms. Like I've had some stuff in YouTube for a while and not really given my time to Twitch too much. I was like, okay, let me go and see what that's all about. And I do think that for what I am doing, it works really well. It's mostly ephemeral stuff. I don't really feel the need to keep a lot of videos. Every now and then, I'll save a video and put it on my YouTube channel if there's something specific about it. But by and large, these streams, they don't hold, I think, information that is like desperately needed to be saved, like a YouTube video. You know what I mean? Like that, they're very just like what's happening now is what's happening, and afterwards, it's not really going to be that helpful in a week or whatever. Or that's kind of how I feel about it. And for me, like if I'm going to be doing streaming, I want to be doing it on Windows. The streaming software on PCs is so much better. It's kind of interesting, really, to my tastes, or to my knowledge, it's the only creative thing that I think Windows is better suited for. Luckily, I was going to say, I'm sure some people disagree. I don't think any Mac Power users, listeners, are going to necessarily disagree with me there. I think I'm probably in the right space to make that comment. But there's just a lot of stuff that the Mac isn't very well suited for in the graphics department, right? And this is where Windows can shine, because I can just throw more power to the system and it can deal with things a lot better, whether that's pulling in multiple video sources, capturing the screens, and all of this stuff I find to be way more reliable on a PC. I've tried to do all of this on a Mac and it just doesn't go where I want it to go.
Yeah.
Like I cannot get it set up just the way that I want and get reliability out of it ultimately.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's been my experience as well. It's why I built a PC for my streaming stuff. I feel like it's gotten better in the Apple Silicon era in terms of horsepower that you need, but things like capturing specific windows or layering things in a certain way, macOS is just a little bit finicky about at times. And there's some things, especially in the window capture area, that you just can't do on macOS that you can on Windows. And some of that may be improving over time, but I think if you're doing serious streaming like you are, you have multiple camera angles and you've got audio coming in. It's a lot more than just sitting down in front of a webcam. You've kind of built a whole little set there on your desk with all these inputs.
Yeah.
I totally get why you would go to Windows for that.
And there might be a chicken and egg situation, right? Because the software isn't as good, but maybe the software isn't as good. It just goes around. Like the software, you can get the same software, like OBS and Streamlabs, which is what I use on the PC. There's 2 different flavors of the same thing. Those exist on the Mac, and there are other tools. Ecamm make a great tool. Ecamm Live for the Mac. So there is software there, but it's not as powerful. And is that a Mac thing, or is that an appetite thing? Is the audience just not there? So I don't know. But all I know is if I want to be doing this stuff with the least amount of frustration, even though Windows brings its own frustrations, I have found that just doing it with a PC just makes the most sense for me.
Yeah, and I'm not super involved in the maker community, but I'm like maker adjacent. I'm always reading about the new Arduino or whatever. And it seems to me like a lot of that stuff as well has their software on PC more than on Mac.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's just
I don't know what the
part
reason is.
Yeah.
It's just, it just seems to be like that's the default for that kind of stuff. When, if we're talking about video production, audio production, the Mac seems to be the king, right?
So is there any delight on Windows? I haven't really, used it daily for a while now. I mean, is there anything
I like
on
the
it
design of Windows 11. I think it's really nice. I think they've done a lot of interesting stuff. We were talking about the window management thing. Some of the stuff they've done there is really nice. But I would just say the overall polish of Windows is definitely improving. I think 11 looks much more modern, even though, it doesn't take very long before you find yourself in a Windows 95 dialog. Like these exist, like a couple of layers down and you're back into XP or something.
That is so crazy to me. Can I just say that for a minute? I mean, It's a multi-billion-dollar company, and they can't redo those dialog boxes. I mean, even if you don't change the underlying code, why wouldn't you just put a new skin on it? I don't understand that.
I mean, I think a lot of Microsoft's big problem is legacy upon legacy upon legacy. Like, if you would consider them to have problems, and that's because of their size, I think, right? There's just stuff that they can't or won't let go.
It's like, okay, guys, but at least make it look like it was made in this century,
Yeah. It does feel like to me like 11 is the start of that, because they really did do a lot of work on the design, just the general design of Windows, and change some things which people, wouldn't expect, or things that were a surprise, like the taskbar got a lot of rethinking. It moved to the middle, right? It looks kind of more Mac OS-y now than it ever has.
Yeah.
But I think they're doing some interesting stuff over there at Windows now, more than they were before.
This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by Indeed. Go to Indeed.com/MPU and get a free $75 credit to upgrade your job post. You're successful in business because you love doing the research, whether it's the state of the market or the next right hire. But when you're low on hours, you still want to do a great job on hiring. Who do you go to for help? It's time for Indeed. If you're hiring, you need Indeed, because Indeed is a hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And Indeed is the only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applications that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't pay. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find candidates with the right skills, you need one powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. Indeed partners with you on every step of the hiring process. Find great talent through time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Plus, you only have to pay for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. With Indeed, you'll be in good company. You can join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And it's pretty incredible how easy Indeed makes it to hire great talent. According to ComScore, Indeed is the #1 job site worldwide. So start hiring right now with a free $75 sponsored credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/MPU. MPU. That offer is valid through March 31st. So go to Indeed.com/MPU to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. Indeed.com/MPU is that website one last time. Terms and conditions apply. Do you need to hire? You need Indeed. And our thanks to Indeed for their support of the Mac Power users and all of Relay FM.
So, Myke, I know you work on multiple projects. You've got Relay, you have your podcast, you have Cortex Brand, which you mentioned a couple of minutes ago. One thing I know that you do that some people feel strongly about in favor and some feel strongly in favor against is you seem to really like separation for different types of work. I know you do this in particular with email and task management. Could you walk us through some of those decisions you've made and why?
Some of it's accidental. I like to try out new apps and services, but I've kind of realized over the last year and a half that there is some benefit for me, the way I work and the way I think, to allow there to be more silos between the types of communication that I have and with people and the work. Like, for example, me and Stephen run a company together. We're also the best of friends. We separate those conversations. We can be having multiple concurrent conversations in Slack and in iMessage and in maybe a group iMessage. And I find that to be very good at helping keep like the boundaries of what is work and what is personal and all that kind of stuff. So me and Stephen did that years ago, and it's been great for all of our relationships, work and personal.
Yep.
I have now started to kind of apply that thinking to a lot more of the stuff that I do as my working life has become more complicated by bringing in kind of separate but also kind of overlapping projects. And I find there to be a real benefit in allowing me to kind of switch my mode at any one time. Like, if I'm in the Relay FM Slack, I'm doing Relay FM work. If I'm in the Cortex Brand Slack, I'm doing Cortex Brand work. There could be, and then if I'm like in iMessage and I'm talking with Stephen, or if I'm in iMessage and I'm talking with Gray, that's not the stuff that would be happening in Slacks, right? So that was the first part. Then, as I was setting up new email accounts for this new business, what I didn't want is to just have everything all mixed in together. So I was like, okay, let me try and use a different email app for that. And so I used Gmail on iOS, MimeStream on the Mac for my Cortex Brand email, and then everything else is in Spark, which is where it's been before. And that also works really well because then if I'm like, okay, I'm sitting down to do some Relay work, I'm not getting emails coming in or emails in the list that are not for the mode that I'm in right now. And I have actually started to think about what it might be like to do more separation. Like at the moment, my email, I get personal email and Relay email all in Spark. I'm wondering, do I want a third email app? Maybe. I don't know. But like, I'm sure there are many people that hear that and go, that is wildly complex. Like, you are adding in all these different elements. But for me, it has helped that has helped me mentally simplify a lot of the things that I'm doing, because when I am sitting down to do a certain type of work, I'm getting less distracted by the other business things that I have going on in my life or the other personal things that are going on in my life. And I've just found it to be weirdly liberating in a way. And I think it's something that I want to keep exploring, because it just means that I'm not getting bogged down by all of the disparate things that I'm doing. I'm kind of opening myself up to allow for a little bit more structure.
That makes sense to me. I mean, I think there's an argument on both sides, right? You could say, well, if you have multiple apps, it's more likely to have something fall through the cracks, or, you know, where's the space between them? But we did a whole show last year on contextual computing. And to me, this is a form of that. I mean, I really believe that if we are to make these things productive devices as opposed to distracting devices, we have to find those little hacks that work with our brains to say, when I'm doing this, I'm going to be working on that, and I'm not going to be thinking about anything else. And setting up silos of apps, I think, is a perfectly acceptable way to do it. The challenge, of course, is making sure nothing falls through those cracks, because
Yeah, that's the thing for me. Like I agree, but that's just a thing for me to handle, right? Ultimately,
and you're aware of it, right? So
Mhm.
it shouldn't be a problem.
No.
Are there any apps that you've come across in this journey that particularly delight you? Like, where are you doing tasks for all these things? Do you separate those two?
No, everything goes into Todoist. What I do there is I separate stuff into projects. I'm not sure about the task management part. Like maybe that might be the only thing that I have that kind of spans across, because really for me it all starts and ends with the task management. So it becomes kind of like the one central place where, I start at the task management system and it tells me what I need to do. Then I will go out from there to the other applications that I have. So I kind of like keeping Todoist as like the central place which dictates the work. I guess a calendar could be simple, like similar, I should say. But for me with calendars, I'm very much a only meetings go in the calendar person. I don't like block out time. I don't put reminders for myself. Like I don't do that. It's just like the calendar will tell me when I have a commitment with somebody else. Outside of that, I'm free to do my own thing. And then that's where I then go to the task manager and I've got my list of things that I want to do and I'll go from there and handle them. Like I used some tools like Trello and stuff like that with various projects, but I don't really consider those as tasks as such, if that makes sense.
No, it's kind of project management, I think it's
more projecty stuff. And for me, I would have a task that will tell me to go and deal with the project. And then from there, I would go to Trello, and handle whatever work is needed to be done there. And I think for me, that works pretty nicely.
What are your favorite features in Todoist? I mean, what about that app really draws you in?
Natural language entry is massive for me. Like many people, Fantastical kind of saved and ruined me years and years ago with natural language entry for calendar events. And Todoist's natural language entry is just as excellent. It picks up the dates and times and everything, and it has its own shortcuts. Like I can just type in, I can add something to projects very easily. This is one of those things now where I don't remember what the shortcut is off the top of my head because my fingers know. But I think it might be if you type, it's either slash, like / or the hash key, the pound key. I don't remember which one it is now, but that will let me add it to a project.
Yeah, right. It's like you have muscle memory, but you don't have mind memory. I get it.
No.
Yeah.
It's like at a certain point, my brain was just like, you don't need this information anymore. My fingers will take care of it for me.
Yep.
Yeah, if you type pound, it will then allow you to add it to projects. Like this is just very ingrained for me. What I also love on the Mac is just with a keyboard shortcut, I can bring up the Todoist entry field from anywhere, right? Like these are the kinds of things that when I did come back to the Mac, it's like, oh, I do like that I have that and I don't have to have it be a shortcut, like an actual like shortcut where I need to go to a widget and press a button. Like I like that I can just enter wherever I am. That is the biggest thing for me. The other thing, there are two other things that I really love about Todoist that brings me back to it all the time. I really love their kind of upcoming view because it just goes on forever, so I can see what I've got today and over the next few days. And that's the view that I live in mostly. But then the other thing is the simplicity. I like Todoist simplicity. I am not a GTD person. Every task that I enter into my to-do system, it gets a date and it gets a project. I don't do these reviews or any of that kind of stuff. Sure. I tried OmniFocus for a while. I was using OmniFocus for about a year. And ultimately, I realized all I was doing was trying to make OmniFocus more like Todoist. Was getting stuck on the things that OmniFocus is really best at, but they're just not things that I need. I keep my list, my task list pretty small, as small as I can. And I don't really need a lot of that overhead. And Todoist allows me to get the power features that I want, but wraps it up in a more simple package.
Do you do a task management primarily on the Mac or the mobile or both?
That's an interesting question. I feel like probably the majority of entry is on the Mac, but the actual ticking off probably on my iPhone. I don't know why. But I feel like I spend more time doing that.
Oh, it's because it's in your pocket.
Yeah, I guess so. And, like for me, sometimes I will have done things throughout the day that I didn't realize were necessarily on the list. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Plus, I just really like the way they have like a really nice drag and drop and good haptics and stuff like that. So I actually find Todoist to be a little bit of a joy to use on iOS. So I think I'm kind of drawn to it there. You know, like I might just grab it, pick it up, and mark off some tasks, even if I'm sitting in front of the Mac at the time.
You know, I should have asked you in the prior segment, but this kind of does beg the question. What do you do with iPad now, since you're more on the Mac? What is the iPad used for?
It is the home computer, the content consumption computer. Like
Okay.
that's it for me now. Like my iPad mini is purely watching video, reading articles, reading comics, social media. That's it. And, you know, I will do the occasional task on the iPad mini, you know, like checking some email, like all that kind of light stuff. But this was like this morning before I left the house for the day. Like I was starting out a little bit late, and I had just a couple of things that I wanted to do before I left. I just went and grabbed my laptop because it was like, this is just on the edge. You know, I needed to have 2 Google Sheets open.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm going to get the Mac because doing this on the iPad is not going to be a nice experience for me. You know?
Yeah. Do you think when Apple releases like the M2 MacBook Air, you're going to have like a little light laptop to carry around with you?
No.
Okay. You're
No, I
good
don't
with the
think so.
14. Yeah.
I really love the MacBook Pro. I don't want to introduce complexity like that. I don't want a home Mac laptop or anything like that. Because for me right now, I like I think I mentioned this earlier in the show, but like to reiterate, I like that going to get the Mac is a thing, you know? Like I got to go out and get the Mac out of the bag, and it's bigger and cumbersome, and it stops me from doing work when I'm not in the office, you know?
Well, you know, one of your podcasts on Relay is Cortex, which you do with CGP Grey, which is, I would recommend everybody listen to. It's a great podcast. And you guys do these yearly themes every year. And this year, you have chosen a theme that is fascinating to me, and one I wish I had done years ago, is just you're going to take the year to figure out stuff that you should probably not be doing anymore. You're not necessarily going to stop. Tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, that's kind of like the idea, right?
Yeah, it's called the my focus this year, I'm calling it the year of structure. And this is just something that, you know we can all sympathize with. We kind of get to the end of the year, we look at what we're doing, and we think, oh, maybe we should do less, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Stephen cancelled all of his podcasts at the end of the last
Just
year.
Just 2 of them.
Just all of them. They're all gone.
Yeah.
What is this thing?
He got rid of all of them.
Wait, we're recording
You're just
this?
hanging out with David.
Yeah.
And
Mike, don't say anything. He doesn't know that we released this.
he hasn't know yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Haven't caught
Sorry,
on.
I'll keep this to myself. And I'd been feeling similar things to Stephen. I was just like, maybe I'm doing too much here. But what I realized I didn't want to do was to make some kind of quick changes, quick reactions to this feeling. So I'm spending the rest of this year really thinking about all of my different responsibilities. Which ones do I stop? Which ones do I move to somebody else? Which ones do I change? What do I have to continue? And keeping that front of mind all the time. And then as I move throughout the year, maybe at the half year or 3/4 of the way through the year, make my decisions on what will not be around for me in 2023. And then also, along with the structure stuff, is these things that I've been talking about, like separating out my machines more, separating out my apps more, and honestly trying to find some order in my life. 2021 was just like wild for me. I just lost all control of my working life and was working way too many hours for me, way more than I necessarily needed to on some projects that just other people could do, or I just didn't need to be doing anymore. And I feel like I kind of burnt out a little bit. And so I have made some immediate changes, put some better plans in place, making myself take vacation, and then spending the rest of this, maybe 9 more months kind of working out what the next few years look like for me. It's kind of like a foundational year for me, really. Like this is me setting up for maybe the next 5, next 10, something like that.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in saying, I'm going to take time to make these decisions.
Yeah.
When I did the law firm shutdown, I made the decision very rapidly. And I took 3 months to shut it down, which really wasn't much time. And when I heard you were going to take a year to kind of look at everything, I thought that's actually really smart. And I think it's something everybody could benefit from, like saying, okay.
I had a bit of the brainwave. I think it's just because I have done the other thing a few times of like very quickly making some changes.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it is wrong at all. And it worked for me multiple times. But my problem really stemmed from I didn't know what to change. I just know I wanted to change something.
Yeah.
Like I wanted the outcome, but I didn't know what would get me there. And I felt like if I just started making quick decisions, I might not be in a better position. And so I needed to keep that front of mind for a period of time. And it would allow me to kind of get to that end space.
And you're also facing, from my perception, the additional challenge of the fact is most of the stuff you do, you really enjoy. So it's not like you've got something that feels like an anchor around your neck. You're actually looking to maybe get rid of something you actually enjoy, but you just don't have time for.
I'm blessed to work on a large variety of projects with all of my favorite people. How do you stop those? This is my problem, right? And so that's why like quick decisions just weren't going to work, and it was going to need a lot of time and some soul searching, I think, somewhere.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to spend time in those decisions. Mine were at the end of the year, which is not the best time just due to logistics, the way that the podcasting calendar works. But I do think it is useful to look at what you're doing, and sometimes the reasons for starting something aren't there anymore, right? Or things have changed and it's not the right thing to continue. So I totally get that. I did want to talk to you a little bit in this section about the idea of like seasonal themes. This is the first year that I've kind of decided, and maybe it's poor theme choice over the last few years, but I have found it hard to find or to define something even that feels like it's relevant for a year. And so I've kind of broken down at least this first part of the year into a season, which I think will probably continue for the next quarter as well. But do you have any thoughts on people?
I like the idea of I'm going to do a season, and then in December, that was my yearly theme. I just didn't know it at the time.
Yeah, but I feel like it gives me a way out.
You have more flexibility.
Yeah.
Some people find it daunting. What I'll say is, if people do not know what we're talking about here, I really recommend. We have a website called themesystem.com. It explains what a theme is. It's got a great video that Gray made. It is selling a product as well that we have, but there's a lot of information there, and you can take it and do whatever you want with it. You don't have to buy our journal to do the theme stuff, right? Me and Gray were doing theme stuff way before we had a product that was to help people with them. And something Gray has pushed a lot of times is the idea of seasonal themes. So instead of doing a theme for an entire year, do a theme for 3 months. I've done this in the past. I've had themes that ran for 6 months. One of mine, my favorite one, was the Year of Positivity. Was like a theme that ran for 6 months because I felt like everyone in the Apple community was just too sad and too mad, and I decided I didn't want to be anymore. I don't remember. This was like 2017 or something. Like all the computers were bad and no one liked the software, and I was just like, I'm just going to change it up because I was getting bummed out doing all my favorite shows because we were just, we all complain, but we were complaining a lot and a lot more.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to find more positivity in it all. And so I really recommend it as for some people it's a starting point. For some people their brains just work better that way, like it's more comfortable for them. The whole point of yearly themes is to subvert the idea of goals and resolutions, to remove potential fail states from them. Like that's the idea. So like a great example is if you decided you wanted to do the year of health, that's way better than I want to lose 25 pounds this year. Because if you say you want to lose 25 pounds, you got to do it. And then there's a number. But year of health can morph into other stuff. like for example, you may start on a fitness thing and it's great for you, but then there's some mental health stuff that you want to work on and you do that. Well, that's all year of health, but you've allowed yourself that flexibility. So for people that do also maybe find the idea of year of daunting, the flexibility, you could take it even more and do what Steven's doing and doing seasonal stuff. And I'm really happy to hear that you're doing it, because I was listening to the show and I heard you say you didn't want to do a yearly theme anymore, which I understand. But I hope that you would pick up on that idea of seasonal themes, because I think that they can be really helpful for people too. And there are just some people that work like that. And, we call it yearly themes and year of something. That's just like an easy way to talk about it. But the idea of just having a theme for the next 3 months, a theme for the next 6 months, and just having kind of like a guiding principle that moves you through a period of time, I think is a very powerful tool as well.
Yeah, I like to do it quarterly as well. Maybe it's a result of my attention span. I don't know, but I also like the fact that every 3 months I have to force myself to re-examine it and decide if that's still relevant to me or not. And,
do either of you have names for these current seasonal themes that you're willing to share?
Mine is kind of mind like water quarter. Everything is, or beginner's mind is basically, this is insane, but because I've changed my life, I need to be very conscious of not prejudging things as they come into me right now. Because everything is open right now. And so
you've got a lot of flexibility and change, right?
Yeah, I've got to just be willing to not necessarily say no right away or yes right away, but just be open to things. And it's working. But it's quarterly for me. I'll be looking at it again at the end of March.
That's good.
Steven?
Mine is the season of beating Myke. No, I'm just kidding. It is.
Had to go there.
I just want to be faster, stronger, and taller than Myke Hurley,
Yeah.
Good luck.
Mine is a season of building. So I had really the last year and a half have been, obviously they've been chaotic for everybody, but I have felt that really acutely from really closer to 2 years now, rebuilding the Relay membership program. All the just wild stuff that happened in 2020, and then in 21 or the end and in 21 building the new studio. I had an extremely disruptive operation kind of in this time frame in the fall of 2020 that really took much longer to recover from than I had anticipated. And so I kind of felt coming into 22 that hopefully a lot of the chaotic stuff from 2 years ago over the 2 years was kind of in the past, right? The membership is up and running. It's doing really well. The studio's built. I'm back able to do what I want to do physically. And so the idea was to focus on putting, kind of like your structure. And I may have used that if you hadn't. And the only reason I didn't use it, even though you did, is now it's defined in my mind as what you said on Cortex. It was poisoned the term a little bit for me in terms of my own usage. But building in structure and discipline into areas to take advantage of the new space and what the membership allows us to do, and getting rid of the shows that I got rid of means that I don't have the workload I did even 6 months ago, but wanting to be disciplined and build on top of that and not just fill that time with things that don't get me to where I ultimately want to be. And so I have it season of building with a little hammer emoji in my menu bar on my Mac through the One Thing app, which Dave and I have both talked about. And so I see it all the time, and it's right next to, the other things in my menu bar. So it's in my line of sight. And so far it's gone really well. The first quarter of it, the focus was kind of rebuilding my exercise routines, because they were totally disrupted for almost a year after having my foot operated on. And that has been to the extent that 512 members will know this because I wrote about it in my newsletter. Fitness is the only non-work thing that I track time for. So I don't track time for, house repairs or doing, things around the house, dishes, cleaning, that sort of thing. Everything in Timery is work except for fitness. I wanted to elevate.
I started doing that this
quarter.
year too. I started doing that as well.
Oh, did you? I made the color black.
Yeah.
In Timery.
Oh.
It's just like it really jumps out at me when I see it on that graph, and I want that to be a bigger and bigger part of the chart as the year goes on.
Yeah, I track it as part of just a project called Self Improvement, and it's not fitness isn't the only thing that goes in there, but it's the only non-work thing that I track because I do think working on myself benefits everything else that I do, so I should take it seriously. And then I get that little credit in my mind of like, well, these were hours spent doing a thing that was important. I really loved your year theme too. I will say, we get a lot of listeners share their themes with us. This idea, and a lot of people came up with the name Foundation. This has been very prevalent this year. So I think a lot of people are going through these similar kinds of feelings of coming back to the world in a different way, and trying to now integrate and add and or remove things that have changed over their lives or are coming back to their lives.
Yeah.
And so, it's been really fascinating to see that simultaneous creation from all these different people.
Yeah, I mean, we did an episode of Focused where we called it the Big Reset, and it really was for so many people. I mean, even like the massive changes I've made in my life, I think that this played a role in it. I don't consciously, I'm not sure that, COVID's the reason I did that, but I feel like, it did raise questions that maybe I wouldn't have asked myself otherwise.
This episode of Mac Power Users is made possible by Fitbod. Between balancing work, family, and everything else we all have going on, it can be hard to make fitness a priority. What you need is a program that works with you, not against you. That's why you need Fitbod. Its algorithm learns about you, your goals, and your training ability, and will craft a personalized exercise plan that's unique to you. Their app makes this incredibly easy to learn how to perform each exercise, which is really important. Personal fitness isn't about competing with others. You don't want to look to others and try to stack up against them or do what they do. What you need is something that will work for you, and that's when it sticks, and that's when you'll see the results you're looking for. Fitbod uses data to create and adjust your dynamic fitness plan, and you'll have instant access to your personalized routine, and they're a fantastic app, so you can make progress on your goals from anywhere. I've been using Fitbod for quite a while. I've been really happy with my progress, and it's really cool to see the app change and adapt my workouts over time. So if I notice and realize that I can do more weight on a certain workout, I can go in there and tell it, and it adjusts moving forward. If I buy a new piece of fitness equipment for my home gym, I can put it in the app, and it reconfigures itself to accommodate that additional equipment. Everyone's fitness path is different, which is why Fitbod does so much work to make sure they customize things exactly to suit you. They learn from your last workout, so your next one will be even better. Whether you work out twice a day or twice a week, Fitbod tracks your muscle recovery to make sure your plan is balanced with a variety of exercises to make sure you're not overworking anything. The app's really easy to use, it looks great with a fantastic new design, and they have brand new HD video tutorials shot from multiple angles, so you can see what you're supposed to do and make sure you're doing it correctly. And of course, it integrates with a bunch of stuff like Apple Watch, Wear OS smartwatches, apps like Strava, Fitbit, and Apple Health. Personalized training of this quality can be expensive, but Fitbod is just $12.99 a month or $79.99 a year. You can get 25% off your membership by signing up at fitbod.me/MPU. So go there now and get your customized fitness plan. That's fitbod.me/MPU, and you'll get 25% off your membership. Our thanks to Fitbod for their support of the show and Relay FM.
All right. We always like to finish the show talking about apps and services and little things that bring you joy and delight that listeners may be interested in. So, Myke, share some of your favorites with us.
We spoke about time tracking a minute ago. Timery is the app. I would hope that all Mac Power Users listeners are very familiar with Timery at this point. It is my favorite iOS app, now one of my favorite Mac apps. I'm so happy that Timery is on the Mac. I love having it in my menu bar. It's so great. being able to see the current timer, change the current timer, start new ones, and all that kind of stuff. I've been really, really happy with that addition. I just think Timery is just an absolute top-notch app for Apple's platforms now in general. I really love it. And if people were thinking about time tracking, that's the way to go.
When you use it, do you do you use automation for it, or do you just manually click it? How do you track your time? What's the process?
On iOS, I have shortcuts that I've built. By and large, I have the widget too. So if there's something that I'm doing which is not in my shortcuts, then I can go there. I will say one of the things that I really like that Joe, the developer of Timery, has built since making the Mac app is auto-filling in the application. And I'm finding myself these days, like I tend to open the app a lot more, even on iOS, just through the widget, which I have on my home screen. And this is how I do it on my Mac too, of just once you set a new timer and just start typing something, whether it's the name of a tag or a name of a project, it will give, I think it's maybe like a week or something, or X amount of timers it kind of saves, and you can just, it pre-fills it, so you can just tap it and start the timer. I'm finding myself doing that more and more and more because it's the way that I always do it on the Mac, and now it's kind of ingrained to me. It's how I do it on iOS too. So that's like a really simple way for me to do it and get my projects and my tags pre-filled. But I do also have a selection of shortcuts that also have timer reactions in them. Like one of the ones that I use a lot is when I record a show, like I just hit the shortcut, it looks in my calendar, finds my next upcoming event from the specific calendar, which is my podcast calendar. They are all titled in such a way that it matches my timery tags. So it will create a new timer, add the tag with the name of the event, and set my recording focus for the next 2 hours. So that's one that I use a lot. And so Timery is built into a selection of shortcuts that I have, but more and more these days I found myself opening the app to set other things.
Yeah, and he's done a lot of cool stuff on the Mac to make it easy to enter time. So it's all there.
Yep.
It's all there. What else brings you joy and delight?
I feel like these two applications that I'm mentioning first, these are the ones that I seem to just talk about all the time, so I just want to get them out of the way. CleanShot X is the next app that I really love and I hope people use. It is just like, it's the best screenshot utility around. It's so much better than what Apple builds in, and it's got a bunch of other features that I love. Basically, you set it up to replace Apple's tools. They recommend you use the same keyboard shortcuts, and it does multiple things. Some stuff that I love is you can set up how you want it to handle the screenshots, like automatically. Like for me, when I take a screenshot, the screenshot goes into the little corner, the same as Apple's. It will not disappear until I've done something with it, because that's what I want it to do. Like with Apple's, it kind of disappears, and I think it will then save it to, I don't know where on the Mac, but I know on iOS, like it saves it to your photo roll or whatever. Maybe it's the same for the Mac, or it goes to the desktop. I don't know, because I don't use that feature. I use CleanShot X instead. It has really nice annotation tools built in. You can do some cool stuff with like capturing just windows, and it can bring your desktop wallpaper in. It's like, so it looks like it's the only thing you have on your desktop, even if it isn't. You can do scrolling captures if you want to capture a web page, just video. You can make GIFs. Like, it's got so much really, really excellent stuff. And I just find it like just such a great little application. I really, really love it.
Yeah. Steven, how are you doing screenshots? Are you using CleanShot X as well?
I am. Myke talked it up so much for so long, I decided to check it out. And I really like the workflow it gives you. It is pretty similar to the new screenshot tool that's in macOS. Grab was there for like 100 years, but it is really powerful. And I like I really like the markup features that it has. So you take a screenshot and you can edit it very quickly. And I like those tools better than what come with markup in macOS and in preview. So yeah, I've been using it for maybe 3 months, and I've been really happy with it.
Yeah, that's kind of like the tipping point. Like 2 or 3 months and you haven't been annoyed by it, then it's a keeper, right?
Mm-hmm.
What else, Myke?
Locket is an app that I saw being mentioned a lot recently. It's an iOS app, and it is mostly a widget application. And what you can do is you can add friends. So, people that use Locket, you can add friends that you have using your, you use your phone number or whatever it is you sign up to with the service. And you can send pictures to people that appear in a widget on their home screen. So me and my wife, Adina, use this to just send little funny pictures to each other all day. And I think it is an absolutely darling little application. I think it's really well made and it's very cute and it brings me joy. And I think people should use this app. I think it's super cool. And they keep adding new features all the time. Like you can have multiple people and you can send just specific people certain images. I love the name. It's so perfect, for what it is. It's just like a little locket. It lives on your home screen. And it's just little images that you're going to enjoy. Yeah, I think it's wonderful. It's a lovely application. Brings me joy every day.
Yeah, I saw this in the notes when we were prepping for the show, and now I've installed it, and Daisy and I are going to try it out. I think this will be fun, especially for someone very close to you.
Yeah, it's really, really great. I think the app is intended to be used with a small group of friends. I think that was the initial intention of the application. But I think where it really shines is between loved ones, very close loved ones, partners, that kind of thing. I wanted to mention Parcel. Parcel was my parcel tracking application. I was a deliveries user for a really long time and loved it and still love deliveries. I think design-wise, deliveries is way nicer. Then Parcel Deliveries, kind of has that old school delight in its design, and I think they do a really great job with that. But ultimately, Parcel does for me better what I need it to do, which is it has more support for more services for tracking parcels and does it inside of the application. A big one for me, our mail service, Royal Mail, in Parcel, I can get all of the information just inside of the app. In Deliveries, I had to press a link to go and log in on the Royal Mail website. I don't know why that difference is, why one could have it and the other couldn't, but the developer at Parcels found a way to do that. The Amazon integration that it has is pretty cool too. It's a little janky. You have to keep logging in with your account every couple of weeks or whatever. But it's nice to have, just an automatic thing added to my parcel tracking application whenever I buy something on Amazon. Just a cool thing to have. But overall, I just find the app to do a better job at tracking what I need, which is where the deliveries are in the world with more of the services that I use.
Yeah, I switched to it as well because of the Amazon integration, where it automatically knows what is shipped in your Amazon account. And it has this cool feature that if a package starts with one carrier and then switches to another carrier, very often Parcel can detect that and say, hey, do you want to switch this from Amazon shipping to the postal service? And instead of having to re-enter it as a new thing. All those little niceties, I think, for me, make up for the design that isn't really, I don't think, is even close to what Deliveries has enjoyed. I mean, Deliveries is beautiful. Parcel is not necessarily.
Yeah. It's not bad. It's just really simple, the design of Parcel, right? It doesn't have any of that personality.
And then, Myke, you are a fan of this app, Flighty. And I know that, I don't even know, what does Flighty do? Does it tell you what gate you need to go to, or what is it?
So Parcel tracks things I want as they go around the world. Flighty tracks me as I move around the world. And I've got more travel going on again in my life. And I really like Flighty. It is expensive. I don't remember exactly what the subscription is. It's a subscription app, and it is expensive. So I only recommend this application if you are a somewhat frequent traveler. But it is very, very well made. It does a really great job of getting all of the possible information that I ever might want about a flight, its path, and all the kind of stuff that I might enjoy. And it gives me a bunch of really useful information, including push notifications of things that may be changing on my flight. It does a really nice job of integrating into my calendar and adding things there. I'm on the beta, and there's some really cool features coming up that I can't talk about. But it is an application that is really well made, really well thought out. And I've used applications that were more expensive than this one and didn't do half as good a job. I think if you are a somewhat frequent traveler, you should do it. It's got great stats. It keeps them year over year, so you can compare how many miles you fly around the world if that's the thing you care about. I think it's a really nicely made application, and I'm a big fan of it.
Hey, Steven, do you have any like flight tracker apps? I used to have one, but they all went to subscription, and I fly like once or twice a year, and it just didn't make sense for me anymore.
Yeah, in the past, I dabbled with a couple of different ones, but when I ever get on a plane again, which right now I have a flight scheduled for June being my first one, I think I would use Flighty if my travel really if it ever approached what it used to be. Flighty is Mike, I want to see what you think about this statement. It is one of the most beautiful apps on the iPhone in a category that has no reason to be beautiful, right? Like the team that's behind this was also behind Weatherline. At least some of the people were. And Weatherline is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It got sold and it got shut down, which is sad. But like this is a straight up utility app, but it is just so beautiful. Like just at least, dear listener, go look at the screenshots on their website. There's no reason a flight tracker should look this good, but boy does it.
Yeah, it really, it's beautiful. I mean, and that's something I enjoy about it.
And the subscription's $50 a year, so it's a real deal app if you do a lot of flying. Well, Myke Hurley, we're happy to have you back on the Mac and back on the Mac Power Users. Although we weren't keeping you off because you're on an iPad. I was super interested in what you were doing there too.
It sounds like
I know it does. The more I say that, the worse it gets, right? But either way, as always, the problem, Mike, is you and I talk so often that I forget that you're not on any of the podcasts because we talk, but anyway.
That's true.
Thanks for coming on and sharing the story with us today. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about your year and your year theme and how that comes out for you. If folks want to find you, I guess they would go to relay.fm and look at most of the shows. You're on a lot of them.
Yeah.
But where else would they go if they want to find you?
You can find me on social media. I'm iMyke, IMYKE. Like everybody, I post what I'm up to there on Twitter and Instagram, stuff like that. And
where do people go to follow your keyboard builds?
Go to myke.live. That's my Twitch channel. And I stream kind of once a week, usually on a Friday. If people want to come and hang out there, I would really appreciate it.
All right. I'm looking forward to hearing how Moon works out for you. I feel like that might be the answer for you, man. I just feel like that might solve the problem.
We'll see.
All right. Thank you to our sponsors. That's our friends over at SaneBox, TextExpander, Indeed, and Fitbod. We are the Mac Power Users. You can find us at relay.fm/MPU. You can also find those great forums over at talk.macpowerusers.com. And we'll see you next time.